Even though you are at a barbecue joint, you can't even afford the fancy cuts of meat, right? Pickles are more than enough for the poor. My former classmate, a banker named David, looked down on me with disdain and aggressively spilled a plate of juicy pickles. The plate overturned right onto the red cardigan I had gifted my mother. Do you even realize what you've done? Apologize right now, and I might still forgive you. Why should I, an elite from Evergreen Bank, apologize to a loser like you? I was just sharing some pickles, wasn't I? He didn't even try to hide his smirk. I see. I understand your thoughts clearly. Mom, let's move the $30 million to another bank. What? He stood there, dumbfounded, unable to grasp the situation. He never took me seriously, but things dramatically changed the next day. My name is Scott, a 36-year-old former banker. After my father passed away when I was in high school, it was just my mother and me. I managed to graduate from college using scholarships, but I quit my job soon after I started working. Since then, I've settled into a new job and life has finally stabilized. Today, to show my appreciation and celebrate my mother's 60th birthday, we came to her favorite barbecue place. When I gave her a red cardigan as a birthday present, she was so delighted she put it on right there. While we were grilling tongue and short ribs, my mom was happily crunching on cucumber pickles. Even though it was her big day, and I wanted her to enjoy more of the meat she loves. Thank you, but I really love these pickles at the barbecue place. Don't worry, I'm also enjoying the meat, she said, continuing to smile and enjoy her meal. If my mom is happy, that's what matters, so we continued to eat joyfully, until suddenly, the private room's door slammed open. Hey, isn't that Scott? I haven't seen you since you fled from work, but you seem well. The voice belonged to David, my former classmate and colleague at the bank. David and I were classmates in high school, constantly competing for the top grades. However, I was always slightly ahead, which unilaterally earned his dislike, making this unexpected reunion quite awkward. Back in high school, he always treated me as a rival. Don't act snobby just because you're good at studying. This time, your guess just happened to be right. He was as smart as me, but his persistence in always losing to me probably turned into spite. He even went to the same university and ended up working at the same local Evergreen Bank, sticking to me all the while. Our relationship changed after 3 years on the job. When the branch manager changed, the business strategy was overhauled, pushing us to aggressively sell products and services. I kept wondering if these products and services were truly beneficial for our customers. As I made proposals to loyal customers and secured contracts, I began to doubt whether I was genuinely considering the customer's perspective. These doubts weighed on me even as I got used to the job, and then the transfer order came. I knew regular transfers were meant to prevent misconduct, but the real problem at that time was my mother. People often say, "Don't take your parents for granted." My mom had always been healthy until she was diagnosed with a serious illness. Shocked, I rushed home where my mother greeted me with a tired smile. "Thanks for coming even though you're busy, but don't worry. It was discovered early enough that surgery should ensure there's no danger to my life." I was relieved at first. But as we talked more, I realized the situation wasn't as optimistic as it seemed. Although the surgery had a high success rate, my mom would need to recover at home for quite some time, making it difficult for her to even manage daily activities, let alone go shopping. Assistance was necessary for trips to and from the hospital, and should her condition worsen at home, immediate care would be required. In other words, someone would need to assist my mom throughout the day. After discussing with my mom's primary doctor, it was clear that living alone during the day would be challenging. Considering the situation with my mom, I decided, after much deliberation, to resign from the bank. I had felt uneasy about the bank's policies, and moving to a distant location, leaving my mom alone, was out of the question. When I submitted my resignation, my supervisor got disappointed and tried to persuade me to stay. Though I felt guilty for leaving a place that had been good to me, my mom's health was my priority. Thus, I left the bank after 3 years. I've never regretted my decision, but for David, it seemed to be the first time he thought he had beaten me. The day before my last day, he came to my desk, sneering as he spoke. "Lucky for you that your mom got sick just in time." His unexpected and cruel words shocked me. I was already tense with my mom's upcoming surgery. I couldn't understand how he could say something so cruel at a time like this. But he just watched my speechless reaction and started laughing disdainfully. "Don't make excuses. You just couldn't handle the bank's quotas and ran away because you couldn't cut it in sales, right? Is that all you came to say? Bad timing. I've got handover work to do, so please move aside." I managed to reply, holding back my anger. He scoffed and continued, "Being smart at school doesn't mean you can hack it in the real world. You've never faced failure before, so you were using your mom as an excuse to run away." Without the will to respond, I stayed silent, and he got even more aggressive. "Must be nice, huh? Quitting before everyone realizes you're a failure who can't meet company standards. What are you going to do now? Hide at home with your mom?" "Yes, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm staying home to take care of my mom, and I won't be working outside anymore, so leave me alone." I lied hastily to get rid of him. He burst into laughter as if he'd heard the funniest joke, then announced loudly across the office, "Hey, hear that? Scott's going to become a shut-in from now on. He's retiring from society to be a bum." In the past, his smirking face would have left me feeling bitter. But now, I see it as my final liberation from this unwanted, inseparable relationship. With that, I calmly continued preparing the handover documents. After that, my mom successfully underwent her surgery and recovered at home as planned. She regained her health completely, and I began working again, establishing a new lifestyle. One day, we decided to celebrate her 60th birthday and her recovery at a barbecue restaurant, a special treat. She was happy with the present I prepared, and we were having a good time when he suddenly barged in. "I saw you when you went to the restroom earlier and thought it might be you. Turns out it really was Scott the loser." He smirked as he threw snide remarks at me. Despite my mother being present, he barged into our private room to harass us, showing that his character hasn't changed a bit. "Today is my mom's 60th birthday. We're here to enjoy this as a family, so please." I tried to speak calmly, hoping to get him to leave. But seeing an opportunity to tease me, his eyes gleamed with mischief as he decided to stay. "Are you really eating pickles at a barbecue place? Isn't that just the appetizer? Oh, I get it. Since you declared you'd be a shut-in and not work, you must be broke now," he said, then smirked and left the room. Relieved he'd given up, I was momentarily at ease until he returned to our private room. He began transferring cucumber pickles from his own plate to ours without permission. "You guys are really saving me here. I can't stand cheap tastes like this. I was about to throw these pickles away," he said. "Hey, don't put things on our plates without asking." I protested, but he just looked down on us, grinning. "Be thankful. You quit the bank and have no money, right? Even though you're at a barbecue place, you can afford the expensive meat, right? That's enough." I raised my voice, but he continued to look down on me condescendingly. "Since you can afford to pay for the meat, I figured I'd share the pickles. Pickles are more than enough for the poor." His voice, filled with malice, mercilessly bombarded my mother and me. I really wanted to retaliate strongly, but I managed to restrain myself. Today is a special day, my mother's 60th birthday. If I let anger ruin this joyous occasion, it would only trouble my mother, who was enjoying herself until now. With that in mind, I quietly urged him to leave. Can you please just leave now? Oh, not running away today. Weren't you the one who quit the bank job crying because it was too tough? Looks like you should be the one to leave this restaurant, spineless Scott. His taunting only made my blood boil. But causing a scene here would only trouble my mother and the restaurant. I just run into him today. David is someone I shouldn't even be meeting anymore. He's like a stone on the roadside, a traveler you pass by on a trip, never to see again. No matter how much he insults me, I just need to let it slide for now. If I don't respond, he'll get bored and leave soon. Thinking this, I remained silent, but this only seemed to irritate him further. Frustrated, he furrowed his brow and picked up the plate of pickles he had added earlier. Then he deliberately spilled the juicy pickles all over. The plate overturned right onto the red cardigan I had gifted my mother. Yikes. Oops, sorry about that, ma'am. My hand slipped, he said, offering an insincere apology with a smirk as my mother's cardigan got drenched in pickle juice and cucumber slices. I quickly stood up to ask a server for a towel, but he grabbed a napkin from the table first. I'll wipe it off right away. Oh dear, my hands just slipped. While saying this, he laughed loudly, crushing the cucumbers with the napkin. The smell of crushed cucumbers filled the private room, and the brand new cardigan was left stained. Oh, it was a gift for my 60th birthday. Haha, sorry about that, seems like I made it worse. He continued to laugh as if watching a funny skit, enjoying my mother's distress. At that moment, my anger shook me to the core. I could ignore whatever was said to me, but I couldn't forgive him for troubling my mother. David, are you still working at Evergreen Bank, at the same branch as before? Yes, that's right. Unlike when you left, I'm about to be the branch manager. I'm the top rising star and elite among our peers now, different from someone who quit halfway through. His voice echoed in the restaurant, attracting the attention of the staff and other customers who peeked into our private room. As he continued to laugh, I stared him down, giving him one last chance. Do you even realize what you've done? Apologize right now, and I might still forgive you. Huh? Why should I, an elite from Evergreen Bank, apologize to a loser like you? I was just sharing some pickles, wasn't I? As he said this, he pointed at the pickle-stained cardigan and didn't even try to hide his smirk. I see. I understand your thoughts clearly. Mom, let's move the $30 million to another bank. What? He stood there, dumbfounded, unable to grasp the situation. Meanwhile, my mother looked confused at my words. What's going on? We've always wanted to repay your gratitude by dealing only with Evergreen Bank because you were working there after graduation. But a person from Evergreen Bank has insulted you and me. I kept my anger in check, but it seemed my irritation was evident to both my mother and him. I continued, staring at his stiffened face. Listen, David, we both have social standings and we're not kids anymore. If you dare insult us like this in public, you must be prepared for the consequences. So what? He responded brusquely, showing no intention of apologizing. I sighed deeply and said firmly, I'm done dealing with you. I've decided to transfer the $30 million we have at Evergreen Bank somewhere else. After this, you'll probably understand what kind of a mess you've really caused. What are you talking about? You're saying you have $30 million in deposits. That's not even a good joke. Go ahead and cancel it if you can. It seems that he still doesn't believe I have a $30 million deposit at the bank. It's embarrassing that you'd lie like that. Don't come crying to me when you regret it. If you can withdraw $30 million from our bank, I'll applaud you, but that's impossible for a shut-in poor like you. We'll see who regrets it. I've only told the truth. Look forward to what happens tomorrow. With that, I left him sitting there as I got up from the table. As we paid and left the restaurant, he continued to mock us. Do you really think I'd believe such a pathetic bluff? I'm looking forward to seeing what happens to you guys." Ignoring his continued taunts, we headed home from the barbecue restaurant. He thought it was all a lie and didn't take it seriously, but the next day, everything changed. I heard from a former colleague that the Evergreen Bank was flooded with calls right after they opened the next day. Some people even went directly to the bank to inquire, and the staff was overwhelmed with responses. David, who had arrived at work as usual, was summoned by the furious manager, James. "What's all this commotion about today? Did something happen? What have you done?" James, usually calm, yelled as if he had lost control of himself, veins standing out on his forehead. Taken aback by the intensity, David apologized while trying to understand the situation. "The phone lines are almost crashing because of the inquiries about what you did at the barbecue restaurant yesterday." "What? I did go out for barbecue yesterday, but..." Confused, he wiped the sweat off his forehead. Then, James showed him a video on his phone. "It seems you caused a disturbance at the barbecue restaurant yesterday. There's a video of it online now, and it's causing a huge problem." The video is online. He grabbed the phone and focused intently on the small screen. The video showed the exchange between him and me from the previous day. "Why is there a video of this? I don't know anything about it." "But that's you in the video, David. Calling someone a poor and mocking them. What were you thinking?" James's words made him spit in defiance. "I just ran into an old friend by chance and got carried away joking around. Is it wrong to eat barbecue? And why is this video spreading?" The fuss was so great that a customer at the restaurant recorded everything. Then it was posted online as a scandal involving a bank employee. At James's words, he began to tremble, turning pale. The video had already been viewed over 1,000,000 times, and deleting it now wouldn't suppress the issue. "My elite life is over. How can I solve this problem?" "Your elite life is over. That doesn't matter. What you did is a major issue, but the person you insulted was none other than Scott." As they were talking, other bank employees came to call James and him. My mother and I had just arrived at the bank. As I had declared the day before, I was there to close the account and withdraw the $30 million. However, the counter staff informed me that such a large transaction couldn't be processed there and asked us to come to a private room where James would join us. The bank employee who guided us knew about yesterday's incident, so they decided to have him join the discussion too. David, who rushed in with James, began sweating profusely the moment he saw my mother and me. When James heard from the bank employee that I intended to withdraw the entire $30 million and close the account, he tried his best to persuade me to reconsider. "Please reconsider. Can you at least tell us why?" The reason? He knows it well. Yesterday, when I told him I would close the account, he readily agreed. He must have remembered his defiant words. He looked around uneasily and then took a few steps towards me to speak. But before he could say anything, James dropped the thunder. "What have you done? Angering our top client like this is irreversible. Scott is a top client. That must be some mistake. He's a quitter who left this bank halfway through. James, you're making a terrible mistake." James's anger seems incomprehensible to him. He smirks as if he's heard a joke and speaks dismissively. "Scott is just a poor man. He certainly doesn't have $30 million. James, his face turning red with anger, got even angrier with him as he continued to make excuses. "It's not a misunderstanding. He's saying he wants to withdraw all $30 million from his savings. This man is a CEO of a major IT company." James exclaimed, finally realizing the truth of my words. After leaving the bank, I started managing assets from home and saving funds, which I then invested in a startup. By networking with talented entrepreneurs, I eventually founded and now run my own IT company. Hearing my background from James, he stood frozen, his face pale and silent. I spoke slowly to him. "Now do you understand that I wasn't joking? I can't trust a bank where people like you work." "But I didn't know. I'll apologize if you want. Just please don't withdraw your money from the bank." He was still condescending, disappointing not just me but also others. James, who had witnessed everything, looked at him with disdain and anger. "I thought you were a competent banker. What a disappointment." As you heard, ridiculing a customer and showing no remorse questions your integrity. "I cannot entrust my assets to this bank." I reiterated my demand to withdraw the $30 million, and James sighed deeply, reluctantly agreeing. Thus, I withdrew all my assets from Evergreen Bank. He resisted to the end, shouting, "How can someone like you, who ran away from a tough job, succeed enough to have $30 million? Aren't you just a coward?" But I just shook my head calmly. "Why do you criticize leaving so much? Assessing the situation and choosing a different path is not something to be ashamed of. But you abandoned your job and lost to me. Leaving from the workplace is proof of no responsibility." It seemed that being a banker was the only thing he could boast about as a victory over me. Hearing him insisting, I felt pity rather than anger. It's great to work hard with responsibility, but no one wants to live with regrets by suppressing what they truly want to do. Regrets? I recalled the day I decided to resign. Faced with a promotion to a distant location and my mother's surgery, followed by difficult home care. When these two futures were presented to me, I chose my mother's health. There are people who will follow the path you aspire to, and there are those who will live like me. Everyone should choose the life that suits them best. You have to decide your own life. How is that different from being selfish? I work hard. I am going to be the most successful person in this bank. I am great. He kept repeating his argument, almost screaming by the end. When someone's thoughts become so rigid, advice from others no longer reaches them. I left the bank feeling sorry. A branch of Evergreen Bank closed down. Months later, I was driving my mother to the hospital. Her illness had fully improved, and now she only needed regular checkups, which was a relief. On the way to the hospital, we passed the location where Evergreen Bank once stood. The grand building had been demolished, leaving a clean slate. "That David person was your classmate, wasn't he? I'm sorry my 60th birthday celebration triggered all this." "No, it's okay. He's always been like that, and it's good that the branch closed down." My comment about the closure wasn't a joke. This information comes from a new acquaintance in the finance industry. According to him, ever since James took charge, the branch's reputation among customers had steadily declined. James had favored David, a high-performing banker, and together they changed management policies. Even during my time, we were forced to sell unnecessary products to customers. After I left, their methods became more blatant, treating customers who refused products as poor and behaving arrogantly, while being overly courteous to big clients. This unfair treatment had been problematic for a while, and there were frequent complaints against Evergreen Bank itself. With the recent scandal, the bank could no longer protect James and David. As Evergreen Bank was already reducing staff by merging branches, they quickly decided to close the branch where David worked. Other bank employees were given placements elsewhere, but James and David were not offered decent transfers. Assigned to a department that only organized old documents all day, David, with his bruised pride, resigned voluntarily after enduring about a month. "I deserve a much better job," he declared, slamming his resignation letter down before leaving the bank. James tried to cling to his job, but after David left, he was solely blamed for the branch's closure. Unable to withstand a cold treatment from colleagues and bosses, he followed David in resignation. Afterwards, James searched for a new job but couldn't find employment within the same industry due to his tarnished reputation. Nevertheless, needing to make a living, He eventually found a job as a bank security guard. Once a manager pushing unnecessary products for performance, he now finds himself humbly responding to customers' complaints. On the other hand, David's life took a harsh turn after his wife divorced him and took their children with her. Forced to sell his home to pay for the divorce settlement and property division, he now lives alone in a cheap apartment. Currently, he works as a part-time employee at a local supermarket, struggling to make ends meet and pay child support. Interestingly, his manager and supervisor are former high school classmates whom he used to mock, but now he has no choice but to diligently follow their orders. He is assigned to the deli section, where he sells items like potato salad and pickles daily. However, still clinging to his elitist attitude, he grumbles, "How can someone like me deal with something as poor-looking as pickles?" and neglects proper stock management. This results in poor sales, leading to frequent lectures from his once classmate, now supervisor. One can only hope that he will reflect on his behavior and change his way of living. As for my mother and me, we decided to redo her 60th birthday celebration. This whole experience made me reconsider what I truly value. I was reaffirmed that resigning was the right decision, and I felt deeply content with my choice. Mom, happy 60th birthday again. Without you, I wouldn't have had the chance to close that account. Let's continue to enjoy life in good health. Thank you, I'm proud of you. My mother replied, smiling gently, obviously pleased. Motivated by these sentiments, I resolved to keep following the path I believe in. As I reflect on these thoughts, I open my computer again today to complete my work with pride. You know, a perennially mediocre old guy like you should be fired pronto. I'll speak to the higher-ups about it. Being related to one of the board members, it'd be a breeze to get rid of someone like you. The man in front of me was completely looking down on me, laughing derisively. With the way he's acting, it's clear that we can't expect him to have a change of heart and work diligently. It's tough to crush a young person's future, but it's for the greater good of the company. Funny you should say that. I was thinking the same thing. Saying so, I gave him a wide, reassuring smile. All the while, I was thinking about how to teach him a lesson. Just pondering on that alone. My name is Robert Stevens. I might be nearing 70, but I'm not ready to lose to the younger generation just yet. I make sure to go for walks to stay healthy and always keep up with the latest information using my tablet. Thanks to that, my health checkups are great, and I'm in top form when it comes to my golf hobby. The stationery company I built from scratch has a few hit products, and business is fairly good. I'm grateful to my employees for their daily efforts. Besides golf, I have another hobby. It's playing harmless pranks on those around me. Of course, something small enough not to be a bother, but capable of bringing a smile to anyone caught up in it. I try to keep it moderate, or else I'll get scolded by my secretary or my son, who is the executive vice president. I love seeing people's surprised faces. Even more so, I love seeing them smile. Keeping employees happy. That is my goal. These days, I've mostly left the running of the company to my son, who is the executive vice president, and my role has been reduced to just reviewing and approving. While I don't want to be outdone by the younger generation, I understand the need for generational change, especially considering the target demographic for our products. With my son handling the business side, I focus on improving the company's environment. A good work environment breeds good work. Wearing a toupee to cover my thinning hair and changing up my glasses and mask. No one realizes I'm the president when I'm cleaning around. I also sometimes disguise myself as a temp worker to observe how the employees work. Seeing everyone work so diligently and passionately is truly heartwarming. I'm planning to visit the sales department for inspection today. With my salt and pepper wig and fake glasses, I'm a completely different person. I wonder what fun things will happen this time. Well, although inspection is the official reason, I'm excited as I head to the workplace. I've explained the situation to Jason, the head of the sales department. My little hobby is well known within the company, and it seems everyone is anxiously wondering when it'll be their turn. But I have no intention of stopping. After all, it seems to be adding a nice spice to the workplace atmosphere, so why not? My seat is at the very end, closest to the door. In other words, it's considered the least prestigious spot. I always find myself assigned to such a place. Upon taking my seat, the young man next to me promptly greeted me. "You're Robert, right? My name is Alex. I'm looking forward to working with you starting today." The young man, speaking in a calm tone, properly greeted me, even though I was just a temp. "Likewise, I'm looking forward to working with you." After exchanging greetings, Alex started explaining the work to me. His explanations were clear and concise, and he frequently checked to ensure I understood everything. I intuitively knew this young man was competent in his job. Morning. Just then, a lethargic voice came from the direction of the door, and a young man with brightly colored hair sluggishly walked in. He heavily sat down at the desk in front of Alex and stretched out with a big sigh. "Good morning, Robert. This is Michael. He's a colleague from my cohort, but..." "Who's this old man?" "Say temp." Well, I'm the ace of sales here, so don't hold me back." I was taken aback by his haughty attitude, but Michael, the young man, yawned loudly without paying any heed to those around him. Michael comes from a family with a board member in our company and is considered to have a promising future. Alex explained with a wry smile. "So, he's a case of nepotism gone wrong," I thought to myself, though I didn't voice it out loud. I just nodded without changing my expression, deciding to observe him a bit more. Michael's work ethic was worse than I had anticipated. He spent very little time at his desk and was often found slacking off elsewhere, browsing magazines at a nearby bookstore or lingering at a coffee shop. Sometimes, he was even found napping or playing games in an unused meeting room. But that wasn't all. He would delegate his tasks to Alex and then take credit for the results. Alex would just give a bitter smile and say, "It's always like this," but if this was the norm, it was definitely a problem. Feeling the need to speak up, I decided to confront him while he was slacking off, pretending it was a coincidence. Today, the first conference room was empty. I pretended to clean and tried to open the door, but it was locked. However, as the president, I had the master key. Carefully unlocking the door without making a sound, I found Michael lying across several chairs. He seems to be sound asleep, courteously wearing an eye mask. Around him were scattered a gaming console, a phone, and several books, making it clear what he had been up to. Wondering how to wake him up as he slept with his mouth wide open and snoring, I decided to start by calling out to him. "Michael, please wake up." But he showed no sign of waking. Resigning myself to the situation, I pulled a balloon from my pocket and inflated it. The reason I carry such an item is to have it on hand for an opportunity to surprise someone. Using a paperclip I happened to have in my pocket, I poked the balloon. The balloon burst with a loud pop, startling Michael awake. "What the?" "Good morning, Michael." I greeted him with a smile, and although he seemed taken aback for a moment, he quickly reverted to his usual smirking expression. "What, it's just the temp old man. Scared me for nothing." He attempted to go back to sleep, so I spoke up. "What about your work? Isn't there a big deal coming up soon?" "Leave that to Alex. He's so earnest it's almost stupid. Even if I don't do it, he'll take care of everything to avoid any inconvenience to the other party. I'm not cut out for boring stuff like making documents." It's about putting the right person in the right place, right? I'll handle schmoozing with the clients. Just smile and flatter them, and they won't feel bad. Plus it boosts my own stock, right? I just need to give it my all on the day of the event. The grunt work is someone else's job. I see. Is that so? So, it seems he's not particularly useful in negotiations or presentations and merely tags along. I wondered if his supervisor was aware of this behavior and immediately doubted it. This type always has a good front. They act arrogantly towards peers or those they consider beneath them, but ingratiate themselves with superiors and clients. It's easy to imagine. Indeed, until I witnessed it myself, there had been no reports of any issues with his work attitude. Unbothered by being caught, Michael intended to go back to sleep, lying down on the chairs he had arranged. "I'm gonna sleep some more. Can you clean another room, and don't make noise, okay? Are you not going back to work?" "What, old man, you giving me orders? As a temp, haha, that's ridiculous." He started laughing, holding his stomach as if mocking me. "My uncle's on the board of this company. Someone like you could easily be fired, you know." "Is that so?" "The fact that you're still a temp at your age is just pathetic. You're incompetent, right? Don't act all high and mighty with me. You and I are not in the same league." His dismissive attitude was infuriating, but I restrained myself. Taking my silence as consent, he continued unabated. "You know, an incompetent old-timer like you should just be fired as soon as possible. I'll talk to the higher-ups about it. Being related to a board member, it's easy for me to get someone like you fired." The man in front of me laughed derisively, completely looking down on me. Given his attitude, it was clear he was beyond any hope of reform. It's tough to crush a young person's future, but it's for the company's good. Coincidentally, I was feeling the same way. Saying that, I gave him a broad smile. How should I give him a taste of his own medicine? Just pondering that alone. "Just so you know, then get lost. Oh, and it's useless to tell anyone. I'll have you fired in no time. Your future is in my hands. Don't forget that. Okay." Leaving him laughing in the conference room, I walked away. My mind was consumed with thoughts of how to discipline him. The big deal was about getting a national chain of large-scale variety stores to prominently feature our new products. The main target demographic was young women. The design is simple, with a wide variety of colors to make it easy to customize. It's possible to match items like pencil cases, pens, binders, and scissors within the same line, all priced affordably for middle and high school students to easily purchase. Alex was the one loading a few samples into a company car. Michael, who was supposed to accompany him, was nowhere to be seen. I approached Alex and offered to help carry the samples. "Oh, I'm sorry about that." "Not at all. I was told by my supervisor to accompany the cargo." Although no such instruction was given, a white lie can sometimes be excused. I'd explain it to Jason, the sales department head, later. As we were doing this, Michael arrived, slightly past the scheduled departure time. Dressed neatly, Michael could pass for a competent salesman if he kept silent. Well, a salesman shouldn't be silent. Without apologizing for his tardiness, Michael greeted us briefly and climbed into the back seat, immediately engrossed in his phone. Used to this behavior, Alex didn't say anything and just got into the driver's seat. I took the passenger seat, and we headed to the office of the large variety store chain. "If the old man's here, I don't need to go, right? You two can handle it. I'll wait here." After parking the car, Michael suddenly suggested he stay behind, lounging in the back seat and pulling out a gaming console from his bag to start playing. "But we told them it would be you and me attending, didn't we?" "Shut up. Just say I had a sudden illness and the old man came instead. I'm not really into the receptionist at that place anyway." Didn't you try to talk to her last time we were there? Did I? Well, I'm not going anyway. Just handle it however. I don't see the point in putting so much effort into work. With that, Michael ignored any further attempts to speak to him, engrossed in his game. Resigned, Alex sighed and said, "Let's go," leading the way. I followed him, carrying a large box. The president of the client company, Mr. Anderson, is an old friend of mine, and I've visited his company several times. As expected, the receptionist recognized me and panically started to stand up, but I gestured for her to stay quiet with a look, and she nodded, turning pale. Alex seemed puzzled by this, but when the representative appeared, he silently followed. Robert, I mean. Never mind, it's nothing. It seems Alex is quite perceptive. His negotiation went smoothly, and we successfully sealed the deal. Back at the car, Michael was still engrossed in his game. Alex knocked on the car window and called out to him. But Michael barely acknowledged, just lifting his head. "So, went well without me, right?" "Well, yes, but..." "Hey, old man, don't tell anyone I skipped the negotiation. You don't want to get fired, right? Being homeless at your age would be the worst." Michael's laughter indicated he was mocking us completely. I've witnessed the decisive moment when he was slacking off at work, and I can also obtain testimonies. I decided to summon him the next day. The following day, for Jason from the sales department, I called Alex and Michael to the president's office. Of course, today I was without a wig and dressed in the formal suit I wear for presidential duties. I couldn't wait to see their reactions when they discovered my true identity. As I waited with a smirk, the door knocked and the three entered. "Hello, glad you could make it." I smiled warmly, but Michael's demeanor didn't change much from usual. He seemed unaware of my real identity. Alex looked tense and worried, while Jason seemed confused about why he was there. "Yesterday, I heard we secured a big deal, and it was thanks to your efforts. I wanted to express my gratitude." At this, their expressions brightened, relieved. "That's expected. It's rare for someone to be called into the president's office for such a reason." They probably hadn't heard of it happening before. "Mr. Stevens." Michael stepped forward, seizing the moment. "Thank you for your two kind words. I've been preparing for this contract for days." His bold claim made my smile stiffen. Unaware of my reaction, Michael rambled on. "This Alex here can't do anything without me telling him. What do you call it? Instructed dependency syndrome. So, I took the lead in planning and strategizing." Michael made these claims while eyeing Alex and addressing me. Jason looked bewildered at him, saying nothing. Feeling like I'd seen enough of their relationship, I sighed and spoke up. "Is that so? Actually, the client company contacted us. Who did the explaining during the negotiation?" "I did." Michael eagerly raised his hand. "I also heard there was someone who stayed in the car playing games." "Oh, that was this guy. I told him to act properly, but he wouldn't listen." Michael's ease in deflecting his own actions onto Alex revealed his true character. He seemed to only think about himself. "Really, Alex, I thought you were very conscientious." "Jason, this guy only pretends to be diligent. I always end up cleaning up his messes." "No, that's not true. Alex tried to protest but fell silent under Michael's glare. He must be feeling threatened with the possibility of being fired as well. Regardless, he seems overly timid, but as the president of the company, I should step in and handle this situation. I've heard about it. Some folks occasionally nap in the meeting rooms, and there are employees in our company who linger too long in coffee shops during work or browse magazines in bookstores, causing inconvenience. I've been thinking that we need to address this issue." "Yes, that's this guy." Michael pointed at Alex. Alex looked down resignedly, clenching his fists. That's strange. Alex always reports his whereabouts properly. There shouldn't be any times when we don't know where he is. What? When I was in the sales department, Alex was always hard at work. It didn't seem like he had any time to slack off. At my words, Michael's eyes darted around in confusion. No way. Why would Mr. Stevens? When were you in the sales department? Michael tilted his head in utter confusion, to which I responded with a smile. Still haven't figured it out. Look. Saying so, I put on a wig with streaks of gray hair. This is, of course, something I wore while infiltrating the sales department. And as I changed my glasses, Michael's face turned pale in shock. What? You're that old temp guy? Michael, watch your language. Jason interjected, cutting off Michael's words, and Michael covered his mouth with both hands. He must have realized he was in the wrong. It's only natural after all the lies that were told. Yep, I'm the old temp guy. It seems you didn't notice. But you have hair, Mr. Stevens's. Don't you say another word. It seems Alex noticed, though. Alex, suddenly brought into the conversation, hesitantly opened his mouth. Yes, I didn't mention it on purpose since it seemed you were trying to keep it under wraps. I nodded at his words. Alex is indeed excellent, very perceptive, unlike someone else here. Looking at Michael, I saw him pale-faced, opening and closing his mouth, as if trying to come up with an excuse. But he was seen through completely. Any excuse would be futile. So, Michael, you can fire me anytime, right? Because your uncle is on the board, you think your promotion is guaranteed? Strange. In our company, no one can be fired or promoted without my approval, and certainly not just because of family connections. I should probably have a word with your uncle then, shouldn't I? Well. I stood up and opened the door to the adjacent room, which was connected. Inside, my son, the executive vice president, and his uncle were waiting. Michael, what have you done? I may have referred you at the time of hiring, but that was it. I don't have any say in personnel matters, and we are strangers at the company, as I've told you. Using my name to threaten your colleagues is outrageous. As soon as the door opened, his uncle started scolding him fiercely. Michael was already on the verge of tears. Michael, anything you want to say? It's clear from observing you these past few days. Everything you've said was a lie, wasn't it? It was Alex who prepared and succeeded in the business negotiations, not you. On the contrary, you were the one slacking official. The accusations you made against Alex were false. It was you who were doing those things. As I confirmed slowly, Michael slumped to his knees. He was aware of his wrongdoing but thought he could deflect it onto others. Such a despicable mindset. I need to think about how to reform his character. But first, there are others I need to speak with. So, Jason, can't you manage your subordinates? If you had been keeping an eye on Michael, perhaps he wouldn't have gone this far. Yes, you are absolutely right. You knew Alex was overburdened with work, didn't you? Why didn't you investigate? Yes, it's entirely my fault. I thought as long as the work was getting done, it was fine. Understanding your subordinates' work is a critical part of being a supervisor. You should reflect on this as well. I'll inform you of your disciplinary action later, but don't worry, you won't be demoted. I'm looking forward to seeing how you'll improve from here on. Yes, I'm very sorry. Jason offered a deep apology. Taking responsibility is part of being a boss. I've always believed this myself. If you're going to give your subordinates freedom, you must be prepared to accept the corresponding responsibilities. Jason, who is not young himself, probably had been fortunate with his subordinates until now. He likely never imagined he would be in a situation where he'd have to take responsibility like this. Then, I turned to Alex. Alex, your work ethic is commendable. However, if you keep taking on everyone else's burdens, you'll eventually burn out. Don't hesitate to ask for help when you need it. That's what you should take away from this experience. Stoicism is not always a virtue. Remember that. Yes, thank you very much. Alex looked me in the eyes and responded firmly. There was a spark in his eyes that made me believe he would continue to do well in the future. Sales department, let's review everyone's workload. Actually, this applies to the entire company. We need to check if the workload is unevenly distributed or if anyone is being overworked. Let's investigate this. Hearing this, my son, the executive vice president, nodded and began to give instructions to someone. I'd like to say dismissed, but I haven't lectured Michael yet. From tomorrow, you'll be my direct subordinate. I'll have you work closely with me. Wait, directly under you? Seriously, isn't that a promotion? Michael's face brightened up, a stark contrast from his earlier demeanor. But here comes the twist. No, because from tomorrow, I won't be the president anymore. Everyone except Executive Vice President Stevens widened their eyes in surprise. This was news I hadn't yet announced to the company. I wanted to see everyone's surprised expressions. Seeing their shocked faces here, I felt satisfied. I'm stepping down from the presidency. From tomorrow, I'll be rehired in a different position. Michael, as my direct subordinate, let's work hard on maintaining the company's environment. Environment maintenance. Like cleaning, managing supplies, and so on. Tomorrow, I want to start with weeding the flower bed by the entrance. I'm counting on you. Oh, and your salary will be performance-based. The harder you work, the more you learn. Really? For real? Michael could only repeat the same words. After all, a performance-based salary means if you slack off, you won't turn a dime. I decided to closely supervise him and thoroughly reform his character from tomorrow. Time passed, and after revising our workflow, the company became an even better place to work. Alex no longer had his achievements stolen by Michael and was making a name for himself. He was the top performer in the company, and other companies specifically requested Alex for business dealings. I secretly hoped that he could become a right-hand man for my son. After stepping down as president, I could devote myself to my hobby of observing the company. Occasionally, I would discover issues and quietly inform the relevant people or take action to solve them. It's fun, almost like being a detective within a company, Michael would say. Despite my initial expectations, Michael diligently completed tasks like cleaning and weeding. He found the visible progress of cleaning and beautifying spaces surprisingly enjoyable. According to his uncle, Michael was spoiled as a child and had never done chores, but he turned out to be quite suited for these tasks when treated as job responsibilities. With a relatively straightforward nature and the right mix of reward and discipline, Michael might grow into a significant asset. Today, we're maintaining the flower bed in front of the entrance. We seasonally replace and prune the flowers to delight visitors to the company. Taking care of these flowers is mostly a hobby of mine, but some people look forward to seeing what blooms next, which really motivates me. Mr. Stevens, I'm exhausted. I'm going to get heat stroke. Oh my, is it that time already? I tend to lose track of time when I'm engrossed, so it's really helpful when Michael reminds me like this. My son, now the president, and the rest of my family are grateful to him for inadvertently taking care of my health. Let's take a break. Here, Michael, look at my hand. As I said this, I magically produced a piece of salt candy from my seemingly empty hand. It's a simple magic trick, but his exaggerated astonishment makes it fun for me as well. Wow, Mr. Stevens, your hands are magical. Seeing him laugh like that brightens my day. The phrase "the right person in the right place," which he mentioned before, comes to mind now. Being reassigned under me might not have been what Michael initially wanted, but seeing him work so happily now, it might have been for the best. Had he stayed in sales, things might have turned out much worse. Within the framework of a company, everyone has a role to play. I believe fulfilling that role diligently is crucial as a professional. To ensure that all employees work comfortably, we as management must continue to put forth effort. After all, our people are our greatest asset. You're not needed here. Huh? You don't belong at the headquarters. Choose between getting fired or being demoted to the countryside. This sudden declaration came from the department head, a graduate of a national university. People like you, who are incompetent, are not needed. He didn't know that I was the only one capable of making a certain part, as he shouted at me. Then, I'll take the firing. Although I wanted to retaliate, being unjustly yelled at made me respond that way involuntarily. Reluctantly, I gathered my belongings and left the company. The next day, the department head reviewed the documents for our client. He ended up calling me, looking absolutely pale. My name is Bill, a 30-year-old with a wife and a daughter in kindergarten. I work in the corporate sales department of a planner company. After graduating from a vocational school, I've been working at this company ever since. Oh, Bill, how are you? Ah, good. Bill, you're quite reserved, aren't you? Yeah, I might be a bit hard to approach. I continue to work at the headquarters, but I've always been bad at socializing and get nervous when talking to people. That's why I naturally avoided conversations, and my talkativeness dwindled. As a result, I didn't interact much with other employees and felt like I was working in a department of my own. Well, Bill's work is perfect. And he's so diligent, we can rely on him with ease. Being serious about my work, I was highly regarded as very conscientious by those around me. Well, I was just absorbed in my work, after all. Without indulging in idle talk, I devoted myself to my work from morning till evening. I'm home. How was your day, Bill? Hi, Daddy. At home, my beloved wife Madison and my daughter Ava would welcome me. Our home is filled with adorable handmade crafts. A stuffed cat to greet us at the entrance, embroidered animal paintings on the wall, keychains modeled after a certain anime character hanging on a corkboard, and a small lamp that gives off a slightly mystical vibe. The handmade crafts were beautifully decorated with vibrant paintings. I'll start preparing dinner now. Ah, thank you. I'll help too, Mommy. Then, shall we set the placemats together? Yes. The placemats laid out for dinner are also embroidered with cute designs that my daughter would love. Indeed, when my daughter saw this for the first time, she was overjoyed. I want to take this to kindergarten. That might be a bit tricky. If you take it outside, you might lose it. Let's keep it in its designated spot. Okay, got it. I was pleased that my daughter understood and agreed. We also have toys designed to help her learn numbers and the alphabet. This includes felt toys shaped like letters and wooden blocks with letters carved into them. Thanks to these toys, my daughter, who is still in kindergarten, has been having fun learning her letters. However, it's not like we're pushing her into some sort of early education program. We're just happy if she can learn while playing. That's the kind of approach we're taking. My wife is similar. She teaches our daughter while they play together, but doesn't seem to push her too hard. Our daughter is growing up well in a warm and loving home. Daddy, I want this doll. Let me see. Oh, this one is fine. Don't spoil Ava too much. I know, it's a reward for being praised at kindergarten. Well, if that's the case, then it's okay. Though I'm not much for conversation at work, I can engage in happy conversations at home. I've been working for a decent length of time, but I don't hold any particular position at the company. That said, I'm not particularly interested in climbing the corporate ladder. I'm content as long as I can continue with my current duties. I find my job to be a perfect fit for me. Once I get started, I can concentrate and find my time at the company both fulfilling and enjoyable. I was content enough to want to do the same job until retirement. Just when work and family life are both fulfilling, an incident occurred that abruptly shattered it all. Starting today, I'll be taking over as a department head here. My name is Kevin, and I look forward to working with you all. In the personnel changes, a new department head was transferred in. That was Kevin. The fact is, people with lower education levels can't do significant work. On the other hand, those who graduate from famous universities, especially with a bachelor's degree, tend to do excellent work. Kevin was known for valuing academic credentials. It seems he himself graduated from Harvard. Among the employees at the headquarters, there were those who had only high school or vocational school diplomas. However, in our department, most of the employees were university graduates. It seemed that I was one of the few with a vocational diploma in our department, and it appeared that Kevin had set his sights on me. "Hey, Bill, the boss is here. Make sure you greet him properly." I did though. Your voice was too soft. Kevin started to pick on me for anything and everything. Why doesn't this vocational school graduate try to consult me? It's creepy how he just works silently by himself. It seems that he didn't like the fact that I rarely sought others' instructions and worked silently on my own. Don't worry about it too much, Bill. Yes. Kevin prefers subordinates who consult him. I was informed by a colleague, which made sense. He may glare at me with a stern look, but Kevin, I've finished this task. What should I do next? Next you should. He would smile and give gentle instructions to juniors who would consult him for everything. In a way, he was easy to understand. There are things that only Bill can do, after all. Thank you. Now, I'd better get back to work before I get glared at too. I greeted the colleague who shared this with me and then focused on my own work. Indeed, there were tasks entrusted only to me here. I just needed to concentrate on those. I figured Kevin would eventually get tired of meddling with me. However, I would later realize that this was a naive thought. One day, the corporate sales department was discussing the planner lineup for the next fiscal year. Our main products are planners for employees. We pitched to large corporations with samples, saying, "How about this design for your company's planners for next year?" Since the requirements vary from client to client, such as waterproofing being essential for some, preferring smaller sizes for others, or being strictly dust-free, we had to come up with various plans. As a result, the meetings tended to be long. While everyone else was caught up in this, I was diligently carrying on with my usual tasks. It's not that I was skipping the meetings. My tasks were specialized, and I wasn't required to participate in meetings. Therefore, I remained focused on my work even during the meetings. "Hey, what are you doing, Bill?" Why are you here instead of participating in the meeting?" Everyone was supposed to know that. However, Kevin complained to me for some reason. "While everyone in the department is struggling in the meeting, what are you doing?" I was puzzled by Kevin's unreasonable complaint. "I'm just doing my job." I hesitated under Kevin's intimidating tone. "What?" "I've been instructed by previous department heads to prioritize my tasks over meetings." I explained this to Kevin, who frowned in response. Hearing this, Kevin smirked in a mocking way. "I see. So you're incompetent, and that's why the previous department heads told you it's okay not to come to the meetings." It seemed like a misunderstanding, but I was too slow to grasp what was said and didn't have the chance to correct him. This is why vocational school graduates can't do proper work. Frankly, you're not needed. You're not needed at the headquarters. Choose between getting fired or being demoted to the countryside. I was stunned by what was said. Fired or demoted to the countryside. Just for doing my job. People like you, who are incompetent, are not needed. I tried to retort but was cut off by more yelling, which left me speechless again. Come on, choose. Fired or demoted. My natural reticence prevented me from finding the right words. Fired or demoted. Then, fired. What? I'll take being fired. Being yelled at made me respond reflexively. You're okay with being fired, then. In that case, an incompetent person like you should leave the company immediately. Then I'll resign. Though it was a reflexive response, after being told off to this extent, I couldn't continue working as before. I chose to resign right then and there. So it was decided. I was fired. I packed my things and left the company. Finally got rid of that useless dead weight. Kevin's voice echoed as I was leaving, making me slump my shoulders. What should I do now? My mind was filled with thoughts about the future and how to explain this to my family. In the end, unable to come up with a good plan, I decided to be honest and entered the house. Wow, it's Daddy. Oh, welcome back. You're home early today, aren't you? My family was surprised but welcomed me warmly, seeing me come home early. I felt tears welling up as I saw their faces. Bill, what's wrong? Daddy, are you sad? Madison, Ava, I got fired. When I said this with a trembling voice, my wife was surprised but quickly calmed me down, saying, "First, take a seat. Now, tell me everything." I then explained everything about my interaction with Kevin, trying not to hold back despite feeling like crying. I see, you've had a tough time. You've worked hard up until now. Daddy, you did your best, right? There. Neither my wife nor daughter blamed me. Madison hugged me, and Ava patted my head. I'm really sorry. It's okay. Now that it's come to this, take some time to rest. But what about the living expenses? Don't worry. We have some savings, and I'll ask my manager to increase my shifts. My wife offered to cover our living expenses for a while by increasing her part-time work hours. In return, could you take care of dropping off and picking up Ava? Of course. Daddy's going to come. Yes. Yay, I can spend more time with Daddy. My daughter was delighted to hear that she would have more time with me. Being fired and then immediately seeing my family move forward so positively made me feel grateful. Thank you both. It's nothing. Oh, that reminds me. My wife stood up and brought back a flyer. What's this? A planetarium. Yes, Ava said she wanted to go with you. Is that so, Ava? Do you want to go to the planetarium with me tomorrow? Yes, I want to go. Then, please take care of Ava tomorrow. Understood. Meanwhile, back in the department I had left. Where's Bill? We can't proceed without him. A few hours later, everyone who had come out of the meeting was looking around in surprise. It seemed they were puzzled not to find me, who was considered a key member of the department. Did he leave early because he was feeling unwell? But all his things are gone from his desk. That's true. What happened? As everyone began to panic, realizing even my personal items were gone, they decided to ask Kevin, who was still there, about my whereabouts. I fired that incompetent, Kevin laughed as if he had done a great job when asked about the situation. This left his colleagues with pale faces in shock. That's unacceptable. Please revoke the termination immediately. They advised Kevin, but it was too late. I had already left the company, and since we hadn't exchanged personal contact information, they couldn't get in touch with me. I did have a company phone, but I had left it on my desk. Why keep someone who can't even participate in a meeting? Isn't that just stealing a salary? You don't understand Bill's worth. Brandon, the section manager, showed documents related to dealings with a major client to Kevin, who was looking puzzled. The documents were about delivery conditions for a major client. The employee handbooks for managerial positions required manual initial embroidery by me as a mandatory condition. What? Bill was requested by name. You're new to the transfer, so it's understandable that you didn't know. Kevin, who started to get confused, was then handed several more documents with similar conditions from various clients. Seeing this, Kevin visibly began to shake. What is this? We were planning to have a meeting to brief you on the situation since you were newly transferred, but this backfired. Bill is truly irreplaceable in this company. My leather embroidery skills were rare, not just within the company but also across the United States, with only a handful of people at my level. One look, and you'll see the beauty of his initial embroidery. It's quite remarkable. Of course, I varied the fonts according to our clients' requests. Not only did I use existing fonts, but I also created custom fonts for embroidery based on client specifications. Because I was tasked with such specialized work, I didn't interact much with other employees. I also hadn't attended the meeting. Well, even if I did attend meetings, the content wouldn't change much, and honestly, I wouldn't be able to meet delivery deadlines if I didn't work on embroidery during those times. Fortunately, many clients requested me by name, leading to a backlog of orders. No way. It's useless to call him now. Bill values his family time, so he generally doesn't take calls. Kevin, realizing the mistake of firing me, turned pale. The next day, Kevin apparently tried to call me several times, but I was using the rare weekday off to visit the planetarium with my daughter, so my phone was turned off. Why won't he answer? Please, Bill, pick up. Kevin was reportedly furious. Later, a colleague told me how difficult it was to calm Kevin down. It was beautiful. Yeah, it was. Daddy, can you make those sparkles? Let's see. Whoa. Unaware of this situation, I was surprised by the numerous voicemails from the company as we left the planetarium. What's wrong, Daddy? Nothing. I decided to play just one voicemail, which turned out to be from Kevin. The message was, "My apologies, please come back." He seemed genuinely remorseful, saying things like, "I didn't understand the scope of your work. After seeing the trading documents, I understood the added value your work brings. I truly apologize." It was clear he understood and regretted his actions concerning my work. Ava, Daddy needs to make a phone call. Can you read a picture book for a while? Okay, sure. Smiling at Ava, who obediently started reading a picture book on a nearby bench, I called the company back. Bill, I'm truly sorry. Yes, I accept your apology. However, I've promised to spend a lot of time with my daughter this week, so I'll be taking paid leave. Okay. I'll be back next week. You're coming back. Thank you so much. After receiving a heartfelt apology from Kevin, who had been nothing but troublesome up to this point, I ended the call. Come on, Ava, let's go out to eat today. Yay, I want a hamburger. All right, let's go then. Okay. Holding my daughter's hand, I headed to a hamburger restaurant. I'm home. Hi, Mom. Hi, Madison. Did you have fun, Ava? Yes, it was fun. That's good, Bill. I wonder if something nice happened for you too. After my wife returned from her part-time job, I explained the whole incident to her in detail. Ahaha. You're laughing too much. My wife burst into laughter. You should have told that nasty guy off. Do you even understand the value of the embroidery only I can do? As if I could say that. I found myself laughing along with my wife, who was still beaming brightly. You're too modest. You should brag more about your skills. Saying this, my wife hugged me again. But maybe if I had communicated more with Kevin, this whole termination fiasco might not have happened. Daddy, are you going to do a lot of embroidery from now on? My daughter asked, tilting her head adorably. Yes, important people all over America use planners with Daddy's embroidery. My wife said this proudly as she lifted our daughter. When I start elementary school, you'll embroider my planner too, right? Of course. Yay, I want a cute one. Sure, it's a promise. I happily made a promise with my daughter, who was then passed to me by my wife. Oh, I asked the manager to increase my shifts, but I need to cancel that now. Rushing to make the call, my wife seemed a bit flustered, but everyone was having a good time. Is it because of me? I felt grateful once again to my family, who never complained despite being dragged into my situations. Thank you, both of you. I need to cherish this family even more in the future. Daddy, I want a cute pattern on the shell of Slimy. Slimy. My daughter brought over a snail plush that I had made for her. She was thrilled when I gave it to her, and it quickly became her favorite. All the homemade toys and crafts in our house, like Slimy, were made by me. Yes, that's good, Bill. You are quite skillful, the complete opposite of your father. You're a joy to teach. From a young age, I learned to craft from my grandmother, who was an instructor in sewing and leather work. Additionally, I studied systematically at a vocational school for sewing. For this, my skills in embroidery improved significantly. And so, I became proficient in all aspects of sewing. Among these, my work with leather embroidery stood out, eventually turning into my profession. I was offered a job at my current company after the president saw the works I created during my vocational school days, expressing a strong desire for me to join their team. And for the record, my father isn't clumsy at all. So, something like this. Well, that's amazing. Unlike your grandma, I can't do embroidery, but I'm good at making these kinds of crafts. My father's hobby was making handicrafts using materials like wood, not embroidery. So, the building blocks and lamps were things I learned to make from my father. Still, embroidery suits me better. When I'm embroidering, I get so immersed in it that I enter my own world. There, all done. Wow, it's like the one from the cartoon. Just as my daughter requested, I added embroidery to Slimy, the snail plush, matching the costume of a popular cartoon character. Thank you, Daddy. You're welcome. Daddy, let's play with Slimy. Sure, let's do that. As my daughter joyfully played with Slimy, I brought out another handmade plush toy. Let me join too. My wife joined in, bringing another stuffed animal with her. We spent some quality time together, making it a fulfilling week. Bill is back. Thank goodness. The following week, when I returned to work, everyone, including Kevin, welcomed me with applause. This is a bit much. Feeling a bit embarrassed, I averted my gaze, and Kevin approached me. I'm sorry for the oversight of my work. It was my mistake. He apologized to me directly. It's all right now. I'm really sorry, thank you. And so, the peaceful environment where I could focus on my work, just like before Kevin transferred, returned. In fact, with everyone supporting me so that I could concentrate, my work progressed even more smoothly than before. As an apology, would you like to go out for a drink sometime? if you don't drink, a meal is fine too. Please let me treat you. Kevin invited me out after work finished earlier than expected one day. Well, it might be tough just the two of us right away. How about with everyone from the department? Kevin had calmed down considerably since then. He must not be a bad person at heart, considering how he's showing concern now. I nodded to Kevin, and we decided to go out for drinks with the entire department. I'm really sorry about everything that happened. I've heard it many times now, so no need for any more apologies. I know I have a short temper and tend to yell at people too quickly. It seemed he was aware of his own issues. I always intend to be more gentle, but... Indeed, he usually addresses his subordinates as you, but at that time, he did use incompetence in a more informal way. That's why I ended up being so aggressive towards you. I really am sorry for that. Really, it's fine now. If you keep apologizing, it'll spoil the drink. Yeah, you're right. Kevin laughed awkwardly. Having been apologized to repeatedly since we met, I was frankly tired of hearing it. About that, we wanted to apologize too. While we were having this conversation, a colleague spoke up. We were too caught up in our own work to intervene. And we thought you'd eventually figure things out on your own, Bill. We didn't explain things well. We're really sorry. This was partly our responsibility too. It's okay. Seeing my colleagues expressing their remorse, I laughed it off and forgave them. Relieved, everyone smiled back. From there, the atmosphere of the drinking party became lively. I've seen your embroidery. It's truly beautiful. How long have you been doing it? Since I was little. My grandmother taught me. Is that so? Born into it, huh? I always thought you were difficult to approach, Bill, but talking to you now, you seem normally quite kind. I'm not sure what you mean by normal, but I guess I've always been told I'm a bit different. I can sort of understand that. Having a drink together and sharing our feelings like this is important. It felt like a meaningful experience. When I got home, I immediately reported everything to my wife, who was waiting up for me. That's good. Sometimes, it's necessary to have those moments where you can speak your mind. Yeah, I understood that well. You do have an aura that makes it hard for people to approach you, you know. Do I? Yes. You get nervous when you talk to people, right? Maybe that gets communicated to the other person. Her words made me realize something. And because I avoided talking, maybe that's how I got that reputation. Actually, I was nervous when I first met you too. Is that so? I met my wife during our vocational school days. That said, I was into sewing. She, on the other hand, was into design, which was a bit different. Bill. Huh? I saw your embroidery. I fell in love with it at first sight, and I wanted to see more of your work. She approached me because she was captivated by my embroidery, and that's how we started dating. Now, even though she works part-time, she gives me advice when I struggle with embroidery fonts or the next plush toy to make. Have you ever thought about doing design work? Not so much now. The time I spend with you and Ava is more precious. Maybe my thoughts will change when Ava becomes more independent. My wife said this with a smile. Thanks to her, my sense of style has also been refined. I'm really happy. Why? I know how wonderful both your embroidery and you are. Knowing that your colleagues now see that too makes me happy. This time, I was the one who hugged my wife. The day after we talked about that, I want to have a drinking party with Daddy too. That might be a bit too soon for you, Ava. Hearing that I went out for drinks, my daughter expressed her wish to join, and my wife and I couldn't help but chuckle. All right then, when Dad gets home today, let's have a little party with some juice. Yay, Daddy, come home early. Ha ha ha, got it. I guess I need to hurry home today. Good morning, Bill. Good morning. Good morning, Bill. Something good happened. You're smiling. My thoughts were transparent, easily read by my colleagues at work. And so, I shared about the interaction with my daughter. What a lovely daughter you have. Bill, you really do cherish your family, don't you? So, should we aim for a no overtime day today? Well, we'd better get to work then. Everyone laughed at that. Sure enough, I managed to leave work early that day without any overtime. The department has become a much better place than before. And I've become even more dedicated to my work because of it. It's good to enjoy your work, but don't overdo it. Brandon. Make sure to take breaks, okay? Brandon, the section chief, brought me a coffee. He always praised my embroidery, saying its value was irreplaceable. I'm sorry about what happened. You too, Brandon. I'm not worried about it anymore. I figured as much. Here, a big order from a major company. Thank you. I'll start on it right away. No rush. Take it at your own pace. That's what makes your embroidery even more beautiful. Thank you very much. I'm motivated to work hard for people who appreciate my embroidery like this. All right. Maybe I'll make another plush toy for my daughter once I take a break. With that thought in mind, I continued my embroidery work. I'm off. Take care. Bye-bye, Daddy. My wife and daughter saw me off as I left for work. Good morning. Good morning, Bill. I greeted my colleagues and settled at my desk. Well then. Today, I'm once again working through a pile of leather, carefully personalizing each piece with a name, stitch by stitch. Hoping those who use these journals will appreciate them. Crafted with dedication and care. The work I've been doing since the old days can bring joy to someone. Being able to work using what I'm good at. I savor this kind of happiness. Bill, this is the schedule for the company's events. Thank you. Your embroidery is always so lovely. It's thanks to your work that we can do ours. You're exaggerating. At the same time, I'm navigating the conversations with people I've previously avoided. I'm thinking of gradually overcoming this too. I still can't initiate conversations, but I've started to talk a little with Kevin and other employees. Everyone talks to me without rushing, which I appreciate. Thanks to that, I've gradually become less tense. Daddy, next time, I want to go to a party in a dress matching this one. A dress. Leave it to me. I have an idea for a cute matching dress. My daughter was thrilled with the design my wife had in mind. Hey, Daddy. Yes. I want to be able to embroider like Daddy. Will you teach me? Of course, I'd be happy to. If my daughter learns from my wife's sense and my skills, she might become even better at embroidery than me. But that's for her to choose. What's that paper? It's the schedule for company events. It listed a summer cooling-off party. I haven't attended in years, but maybe it's time to join in again. That's what I'm considering. Then, a decade or so later, I managed to further enhance my embroidery skills. Now, I'm recognized worldwide. As for my daughter, I want to make plush toys like the ones Dad made for me. She said, becoming a famous high school girl who creates unique plush toys in the world. Continuing like this was thanks to my family and colleagues who started to engage with me. Remembering this, I face my embroidery work today. How was that? Subscribing will motivate me for future video productions. See you in the next video. Huh? I heard an unusual voice from my typically mild-mannered wife. It seemed that something I said had hit the switch of her anger. In our 26 years of marriage, I had never heard her speak like this before. She gave me a chilly look as I tried to laugh it off. However, I would soon understand her true intentions and reaffirm the depth of her love for me. My name is Anthony. I'm 61 years old. 3 years ago, my wife and I started running a restaurant together. It's a tiny place with just 8 counter seats and 2 tables. But for me now, this place is also my precious castle. The regulars from the neighborhood, my friends. The customers are often familiar faces, and now, past my 60s, I feel more alive than ever. I'm in charge of cooking, and my wife takes care of the service. I work silently, occasionally smiling as I listen to my wife chatting with the customers. We hadn't planned on owning a restaurant. As a child, I helped with dinner in place of my working parents, and by upper elementary school, I could prepare meals on my own. I enjoyed cooking and had a vague dream of owning my own place someday. However, when I mentioned my desire to attend culinary school after graduating high school, my parents immediately objected. They argued that working for a stable company would be more secure. Lacking strong willpower, I easily decided to go to university instead. My dream of owning a restaurant hadn't vanished, but I didn't feel defeated because I could always cook my own meals whenever I wanted. After graduating from college and becoming a company employee, I embarked on a stable life. Living with my parents, my sole hobby was cooking. Both of my working parents had retired and were enjoying their hobbies and leisure activities. Due to our meal times not aligning, I decided to prepare my own meals. I sometimes cooked for them on weekends. I didn't consider myself lacking in sociability, but even with my routine of commuting between work and home, I found enjoyment in trying out new restaurants and searching for unusual seasonings. I was quite content with my life as it was. However, a senior colleague at work decided I must be lonely because I was single and semi-forced me into attending a mixer. I had some experience with dating but didn't feel lonely without a partner. I was just going to save my senior's face. At the mixer, I was seated across from Samantha, who was also my age by chance. She was a dynamic woman, taking the lead in ordering for everyone and serving dishes. As she was busy serving, I reached out to serve her some food. "Hey, Samantha, please stop for a moment and enjoy your meal." As I reached to take the serving dish she was holding, she looked at me, startled. "Oh, thank you. I just got carried away. Was I bothering you?" She was worried that she might have been a nuisance. "No, not at all. Everyone's just looking out for themselves. You should eat without worrying, Samantha." Saying this, I pointed at the seniors who were casually picking at their food. "Maybe it's an occupational hazard. I just can't help wanting to take care of others." She blushed slightly, giving a shy smile. "What do you do for work?" As I pondered what kind of job involves caring for others, I asked Samantha. "I work as a preschool teacher, so I'm always taking care of kids. That's why, even when I go out to eat with my girlfriends, I can help but act a bit like a mom, setting up the small plates and serving the food." Blushing, Samantha lightly sipped her beer, as if to hide her embarrassment. "So, you're everyone's mom. I can see you're very dedicated to your work. On the other hand, I like to cook for everyone." Surprisingly, we hit it off at the mixer and exchanged contact information towards the end. Since we both lived with our parents, we arranged specific days and times when we could be sure to answer each other's calls. Until then, my life was just work and home. On my days off, I spend my time exploring different eateries and searching for unique condiments. Then, the time I spent with my girlfriend became a part of my life. There were days when she would join me in my hobbies, and days when I would participate in hers. Sometimes, we would even make lunch boxes together and have picnics in the park. "Your cooking is always the best, Tony," she'd say. Samantha, not wanting to simply call me by my name, started calling me Tony. "Your hamburgers are delicious too, Samantha." Suddenly, she went silent and looked down. "What's wrong?" Concerned, I looked closer and she puffed her cheeks, glaring at me playfully like a mischievous child. "Of course it's delicious. It's store-bought after all. I simply can't match your culinary prowess." Saying this, she took a large bite of the fried chicken I had prepared. She expressed her enjoyment of the fried chicken with a trembling delight. "It makes me so happy to see you enjoy my cooking so much, Samantha." After finishing the fried chicken, she said to me, "Because it's truly delicious. If you opened a restaurant, I'm confident I'd become a regular for sure." Her words reminded me of a childhood dream I once had. "A restaurant, huh?" Murmuring this to myself, she asked with a serious look on her face. "What's wrong?" Concerned about my chuckle of remembrance, this time Samantha leaned in to get a closer look at my face. I was just remembering a dream I had as a kid." She took a sip of her tea and asked, "A dream?" "My parents both worked, so there were times when I'd prepare dinner. I never minded cooking. I actually enjoyed it. But when I said I wanted to become a chef, they shot me down. As I grew up, I harbored a dream of owning my own restaurant, and that's what I was just reminiscing about." I was worried she might think I was naive, but contrary to my fears, her eyes lit up as she said to me, "Well, that's amazing. Having your own restaurant would be wonderful, Tony. With your cooking skills, there's no need to give up on your dream, right?" And with that, driven by my desire to be with her forever, I proposed to Samantha. It's been 2 years since we started dating. I'm confident about our future and building a happy home with her, who's always so comfortable to be with. She accepted my proposal with joy, saying, "Thank you, Tony, and can I make a suggestion?" Raising her index finger, she added her proposal. "What is it?" Drained of energy from proposing, I listened to her suggestion. "I was thinking about starting a dream savings account." Seeing the puzzled look on my face, she explained, "Dream savings is about saving money to support your dreams or mine, Tony. Little by little, it adds up. You know, many a little makes a mickle." Hearing this, I thought it was a brilliant idea, but I also wondered about her dreams. "What's your dream, Samantha?" She tried to dodge the question with a vague answer. "My dream? Well, let's put that aside for now." She didn't give a clear answer, but it seemed she hadn't decided yet. After we got married, she continued working, and we shared household chores. Naturally, I took on most of the cooking, while I left the laundry and cleaning, which I wasn't good at, to her. I never held the belief that women should do the household chores just because they are women. I think it's best if whoever is capable does what they can. However, I received a lot of criticism from her about laundry and cleaning, so I stopped attempting those chores altogether. So, I put all my effort into cooking delicious meals every day. I had to cut back on exploring new seasonings and eateries, sticking to my allowance, as we started saving for our dream. Seeing the balance in our dream savings account grow made me wonder if my childhood dream might actually come true. I even caught myself thinking silly thoughts like whether she had cast a spell on me. But then, something happened that put a stop to these musings. The following year after we got married, our first child, a son, was born. We decided to name him Michael. Despite it being our first time raising a child, her job as a preschool teacher meant she was accustomed to handling babies. Naturally, as he was our child, I was keen on being involved in his upbringing. However, whether it was the way I held him, my scent, or the texture, he wouldn't stop crying in my arms. She would caution me not to sway him too roughly, leading to a change of hands. in her arms. His cries would cease so abruptly it was almost startling. Maybe there was a sense of security in her touch. Becoming a parent truly made me realize the immense challenge it entails. After a whirlwind year of parental leave, she returned to work. Our mornings became frantic, and one wrong move could upset Michael's mood. Following a set routine, we demonstrated excellent teamwork. However, as mentioned before, an unforeseen event occurred. She developed a mental illness. Her passion for her job as a preschool teacher and the stress and fatigue from her diligent work led to her physical incapacity. Unable to continue working, she had to resign about 6 months after her return. I gently rubbed her back as she fell into a deep slump. Holding Michael, tears welled up in her eyes. "I'm sorry. We can't save for our dream anymore. I've become a burden." She apologized repeatedly. "What are you talking about? You've worked so hard, Samantha. Maybe this is God's way of telling you to take a rest." A tear rolled down her cheek. Michael, with a smile, reached out his tiny hand as if to wipe her tear away. It looked as if he was comforting her. Seeing that scene, I knew I had to protect them both. I made a firm resolution in my heart. After that, she seemed distant, lost in her thoughts. She never neglected Michael's care, but her smiles were rare, and she spoke very little. I wanted her to return to her usual self, but I knew better than to rush. Remembering our first picnic, I prepared the same lunch and took Samantha and Michael to the same spot. Standing in the same place as that day, I felt the wind on my face, bringing a sense of comfort. Turning to Samantha, she seemed to be enjoying the breeze on her cheek just as much. "Come on, I've made us some lunch, let's eat." "Michael, sit down and let's eat together." As Michael, who is almost 2 years old, is seated on the spread-out picnic blanket, she stands up to open the lunchbox. "Daddy's chicken. Love it so much." With a hearty appetite, like her, he happily eats the fried chicken I make, calling it delicious. As Michael, his hands and mouth all greasy, tries to wipe his hands on my clothes, I hurry to stop him. She laughed for the first time in a while, watching our antics. Watching this unfold, I let go of his hand, and my clothes end up a mess with bits of fried chicken and grease. Seeing my clothes all messed up, I put on a sad face with an "oh no." At that, he laughs out loud and even tries to put his tiny hands on his face. Seeing this interaction, she too shows a joyful smile. That's right, as long as the three of us can laugh together like this, that's all that matters. Since we started saving for our dream, the childhood dreams I had given up on might just come true. No, I definitely want to make them come true. Before I knew it, such feelings might have started to take root in my heart. These feelings might have become a burden for her, leading to this outcome. Perhaps, dreams should just remain dreams. As my feelings started to change, her health also seemed to be gradually improving. When Michael entered elementary school and she started having some time to herself, she began working short hours as a child care worker, making a gradual return to her profession. Perhaps because she could do the job she loved, she began to speak more positively. She even brought up the dream I had shared with her before we got married. Even though we couldn't save much in our dream fund, now that I'm back at work, maybe it's feasible. I was touched, but I couldn't just say, "Let's do it." I don't want Michael to have to give up on his dreams because of financial reasons. Hearing that, her enthusiasm seemed to wane. "But do you remember when we looked at that used property before we built this house? That house had a shop on the first floor, and you said a home combined with a store might be nice, right?" I vaguely remembered the day she was talking about. True, we did talk about that, but I don't have the courage to quit my current job and take on a 30-year mortgage on the house. Dreams are called dreams because they are not meant to be achieved. With that, I ended the conversation. She seemed unsatisfied but swallowed her thoughts. I was content just cooking for my family and hearing them say it was delicious. And Michael was growing up, reaching the time to decide his path after high school graduation. I had easily given up my own dreams to comply with my parents' wishes. I didn't regret it, but I wanted him to build his future according to his own will. I would be there to offer advice and support when he wasn't sure. I wanted to watch over him as he walked down the path he chose. And so, he decided to pursue architecture in college. When we turned 50, he graduated from college and began living on his own to start his job. At the same time, he introduced us to his girlfriend. She's already pregnant with their child. Though I had thoughts about the timing and his being irresponsible in his first year of work, their determination to marry and have the children was firm, and we decided to support them with both families' blessing. Then, I received my transfer orders. After years of desk work, I was ordered to transfer to a field position. To a subsidiary in the neighboring state, no less. It was clear they wanted me to take early retirement. When I got home, I told my wife about the transfer. "Well, that's so sudden." Of course, she was shocked. "They probably want me to take early retirement. Maybe I'll work there for about 5 years. Now that Michael is independent, maybe it's time to make way for the younger ones. If I quit now, I won't get the full retirement pay, but maybe we could start that shop." I tried to lighten the mood and mentioned this idea to her. However, her expression changed completely. Starting a shop isn't child's play." I was surprised at her tone but responded, "But you used to talk about it, remember?" I brought up the past conversation. "That was when we were young. Now that we're older, we need to think about our future lifestyle. I've always wondered why you're so quick to give up things for others. Even if the company wants you gone, you should stay until you get the full retirement. I'll stay here. Go on your own if you must." Her cold response made me angry, but I retorted with determination. "I was thinking of you and Michael. I get it. I'll go alone. Living by myself, that'll be an adventure." Eventually, I moved to the new location without much conversation with Samantha. She must have had her own concerns. Spending time apart might bring us back to normal. Thanks to Michael keeping in touch, our family didn't completely fall apart. Living alone, I realized that cooking for my family was my only true joy. After finishing work on time and returning home, I found no energy to cook, despite loving it so much before. For the first time in a long while, I bought a convenience store dinner. I take a bite of the warmed-up food. It's not about savoring the flavor, just fueling up for tomorrow's work. I wondered if Samantha was eating well. I moved here without talking much, and ultimately, all I could think about was how she was doing. I didn't care much about meals, but I relied on her for clothes and underwear, often wearing socks that were thinning and tearing. Just when I needed it, Michael would always come by on weekends with new things, as if on cue. "Here's some stuff for you," he'd say, bringing new socks, underwear, and clothes. He said he chose them, but I believed Samantha bought those items and he was bringing them to me. That's what I thought. "Thanks, as always. How's everything at home?" I could only bring myself to ask about the house, but I was actually trying to inquire about how Samantha was doing. "Home, it's fine." "Oh, you mean Mom? She's good. She's been a big help with our eldest since my wife is expecting our second child." Hearing this made me feel relieved. It's been 5 years since I started living alone. I didn't return home until the Christmas holidays of the first year after moving, desperate to adjust to the new place. I was as nervous as if I was returning to a stranger's home, not having kept in frequent touch. Initially, there was some tension, but Samantha welcomed me warmly, and I felt relieved in the usual atmosphere. spending a lively end of the year with Michael's family. After that, I came back during the summers and brief holidays, but in the last year, she visited me more often. Even when I said I would come home, she would find reasons not to let me. Although it felt odd, I didn't mind since Samantha seemed to enjoy these trips like vacations. Then, in the 5th year, I learned the company was planning layoffs. I was the first to be approached, and though Samantha might disapprove, I wanted to give my spot to a junior colleague and decided to accept their offer, as I would receive the full retirement package. Nervous about possibly angering her again, I called Michael instead. "Michael, I'm sorry. It looks like I'll be leaving the company. I'll be done by the end of March." He didn't seem particularly concerned and responded casually. "Dad, you've worked hard, so you have 3 more months, huh?" The emphasis on 3 months felt significant for some reason. "Yeah, just 3 months left." Although I sounded a bit melancholic, he simply acknowledged and said, "Got it," seemingly unfazed. I told him about my retirement but couldn't bring myself to tell Samantha directly. Even though she must have heard, she didn't contact me. As my departure neared, I worried whether I had a place to return to. But soon, I would discover why Samantha hadn't wanted me to come home. On the last day of March, Michael came over to help with the move the next day. "Should I even go back to that house?" I asked tentatively. Michael laughed, seemingly amused. Sorry, but that's your house, right? What are you worried about? You're still concerned about things with Mom." "Oh, I found something great when I was cleaning the house the other day." With that, he showed me something on his phone, grinning. It was a wish he had written in kindergarten. Besides his dream, there was another piece of paper with something written in tiny letters. "I want to be the manager of Anthony's shop." Squinting at the fine print, Michael mumbles, "Is this?" "It says Samantha here, that's what it means." He showed a meaningful smile, said he was heading to bed for tomorrow's work, and quickly lay down. Her dream. When we were younger and I talked about saving for our dreams, she didn't share hers. Was this her dream? Then why did she react that way when I mentioned the transfer? The next day, Michael and I loaded my few belongings into the car and left the apartment I had lived in for 5 years. "Dad, did you forget anything? Off to the castle of dreams we go." Hearing him say this with such joy made me worry if he was plotting something mischievous. The familiar surroundings of our home hadn't changed, but after a year, it all seemed so fresh. My heart raced as we approached the house. As I thought, just around this corner, I couldn't find my house. "Wait, where's the house?" With a nervous voice, I got a laugh and a response from Michael. "Haha, what are you talking about? This is your house, right here." The garden facing the house had transformed into a parking space that could fit about 4 cars, altering the appearance of the house I knew. "What's all this about?" As I got out of the car and stared at the house in disbelief, Michael nudged me on the back, guiding me inside. The real treat is inside the house. Opening the front door, it felt like we were entering a store. Inside, there were counter seats lined up, with 2 tables available as well. "Sorry, Dad, for doing this without asking, but does this place look familiar to you?" As I struggled to recall, he provided the answer. "Remember when we were looking at various places before building our house? There was one where the first floor was a shop, right? I modeled it after that atmosphere. It's a vague memory, though." That jolted my memory. "Built? You mean you built this?" I turned to Michael with an even more surprised look. "I am a licensed architect, after all." Then, a little boy came running up, calling out "Grandpa." Michael's son peeked out from behind the counter, followed by Samantha in an apron, chasing after him. "Samantha." Before I could prepare myself emotionally, I struggled to find the right words. But Samantha spoke up. "You've worked hard all this time. This place will be where we start the second chapter of our lives together." I finally understood the answer she had been angry about that day. She had been determined to fulfill my dream. But due to her health, the dream savings hadn't gone as planned, and she felt guilty. Just as she was considering using the retirement money, I carelessly mentioned quitting my job, leading to that day's argument. "Did you think I was being greedy?" she asked, looking somewhat embarrassed. I couldn't find the words and just shook my head. "Even if we start a shop, we need funds to keep it running. Your cooking will definitely captivate everyone, and after that, I started learning what's necessary to open a food business from acquaintances in the industry. I even took a course to become a food protection manager because it's required. Since you said you'd quit by March, I asked Michael to renovate the house within that time frame, and here we are." Listening to Samantha speak so happily, I kept murmuring thank you over and over. "Samantha, to think you went to all this trouble for me. Thank you so much." My voice was shaking with tears by the last word. I had always hoped my family would never give up on anything, yet I was the one who had nearly given up on everything. They taught me the joy of having dreams come true. Call it greed, call it whatever, it doesn't matter. I want to make Samantha happy, the one who chased after my dream as if it were her own. My ultimate dream was this, but I'll keep it a secret for now. As the streetlights flickered on again today, I listened to Samantha's joyful laughter, ready to swing into action. Samantha, donning her favorite apron, hung up the open sign and called out loudly to me. "Tony, it's time to open up." Wearing a pristine white apron, I stepped up to the counter, and our first customer pushed the door open with a jingle. "Welcome,